In the heart of a bustling city, where skyscrapers pierced the clouds and streets buzzed with endless activity, there lived a man named Jordan Hayes. Jordan was not your ordinary person. He was a talk show host known across the country for his sharp tongue, quick wit, and unapologetic stance as an atheist. His show, which aired late at night, attracted millions of viewers who tuned in to hear him dissect everything from politics to pop culture. But what made Jordan especially famous, or infamous depending on who you asked, was his relentless criticism of religion. He saw faith as nothing more than a crutch, a way for people to avoid facing the harsh realities of life. And he never hesitated to say so, often mocking those who believed in something greater than themselves. Jordan's studio was a sleek, modern space filled with bright lights, state-of-the-art cameras, and a large desk where he sat like a king holding court. Every night he invited guests ranging from scientists to celebrities, all chosen because they had something provocative to say, or because their views clashed dramatically with his own. It was this dynamic that kept audiences hooked. People loved watching Jordan spar with his guests, delivering biting remarks that left them squirming in their seats. Some admired his boldness, while others thought he was too arrogant for his own good. But no matter what anyone said, one thing was certain: Jordan Hayes always knew how to make headlines. On this particular evening, the atmosphere in the studio felt electric. The reason? Keanu Reeves, the actor everyone loved, was scheduled to appear as the main guest. Known for his roles in action-packed movies, Keanu wasn't just a Hollywood star. He was also a deeply private man whose humility and kindness had earned him a special place in the hearts of fans worldwide. What many didn't know, however, was that Keanu was quietly spiritual. Over the years, he had spoken openly about his belief in something greater than himself, though he rarely elaborated. For Jordan, this made Keanu the perfect target. He couldn't wait to challenge the actor's faith on live television, confident that his arguments would leave Keanu speechless. As the clock ticked closer to airtime, Jordan paced back and forth in his dressing room, rehearsing the questions he planned to ask. "What makes you think there's some divine force out there?" he muttered under his breath, practicing his tone. "Isn't it easier to believe we're just random accidents in a chaotic universe?" He grinned at his reflection in the mirror, imagining the look on Keanu's face when confronted with such direct skepticism. To Jordan, this interview wasn't just another episode. It was an opportunity to prove once again that faith was nothing more than wishful thinking. Meanwhile, backstage, Keanu prepared for his appearance with quiet composure. Unlike Jordan, who thrived on adrenaline and drama, Keanu preferred simplicity. He wore a plain black suit, his hair neatly combed, and carried himself with the same understated elegance that fans adored. As assistants fussed around him, adjusting microphones and checking lighting, Keanu remained calm, sipping water and reviewing notes for the interview. He knew Jordan's reputation well, but chose not to focus on it. Instead, he reminded himself why he had agreed to come on the show: to share his perspective, not to win an argument. Faith, for Keanu, wasn't about convincing others. It was about finding meaning in a world that often felt overwhelming. The moment finally arrived. The studio lights blazed brighter as the producer counted down, signaling the start of the show. Jordan took his seat behind the desk, flashing his trademark grin at the camera before turning to greet Keanu warmly. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, his voice smooth and confident, "tonight we have a very special guest, actor, philanthropist, and cultural icon Keanu Reeves." The audience erupted into applause as Keanu walked onto the stage, waving modestly before settling into the chair opposite Jordan. For a brief moment, the two men exchanged polite smiles, the tension between them barely noticeable. But it didn't take long for Jordan to dive into the topic he'd been itching to discuss. Leaning forward slightly, he fixed Keanu with a curious gaze. "Keanu," he began, his tone light but probing, "you've talked in interviews about believing in something greater than yourself. Can you tell us what that means to you?" Keanu nodded, taking a deep breath before responding. He spoke slowly, choosing his words carefully. For me, it's about recognizing that there's more to life than what we see or understand. It's about connection with each other, with nature, with the universe. His answer was calm and measured, yet it carried a depth that caught even Jordan off guard. Unwilling to let the moment pass without pushing further, Jordan raised an eyebrow and leaned back in his chair. But isn't that just, I don't know, comforting yourself? A way to deal with the chaos of life? He smirked, clearly enjoying the chance to provoke. The audience laughed nervously, unsure whether to applaud or stay silent. Keanu, however, didn't flinch. He looked directly at Jordan, his expression thoughtful. I suppose some might see it that way, he replied. But for me, it's not about escaping reality. It's about embracing it, the beauty, the mystery, the unknown. Jordan wasn't satisfied. If anything, Keanu's calm demeanor only fueled his determination to unsettle him. So you're saying you believe in God or some higher power? Do you really think there's evidence for that? His tone grew sharper, almost mocking. Keanu paused, considering the question. I don't need evidence, he said finally. Faith isn't about proof. It's about trust in something bigger, something beyond ourselves. The simplicity of his response seemed to catch Jordan off guard, but only for a second. He quickly recovered, firing off another question designed to poke holes in Keanu's reasoning. As the interview continued, the contrast between the two men became increasingly apparent. Jordan's rapid-fire questions and sarcastic remarks clashed, with Keanu's steady, reflective answers. Where Jordan sought to dominate the conversation, Keanu offered patience and understanding. At times, the audience seemed unsure how to react, torn between laughter at Jordan's antics and admiration for Keanu's grace under pressure. By the time the segment ended, the tension in the room was palpable. Jordan leaned back in his chair, wearing a satisfied smirk, convinced he had won the verbal sparring match. Keanu, on the other hand, remained composed, thanking Jordan for the opportunity to share his thoughts. Backstage after the show, Keanu slipped away quietly, avoiding the media circus that typically followed him. Jordan, meanwhile, basked in the aftermath of the interview, replaying moments in his mind where he believed he'd exposed the flaws in Keanu's beliefs. To him, it was just another victory, a testament to his ability to dismantle irrational ideas with logic and wit. Little did he know, however, that this encounter would plant seeds of doubt in his own mind, setting the stage for a journey neither man could have anticipated. The days following the interview passed quickly for Jordan Hayes, as they always did in the whirlwind world of television. The episode featuring Keanu Reeves became one of the most talked-about segments of his show, sparking debates across social, media platforms, and news outlets. Viewers were divided. Some praised Jordan for his boldness, applauding him for challenging what they saw as outdated beliefs. Others criticized him, accusing him of being disrespectful and close-minded. But, despite the mixed reactions, Jordan paid little attention to the backlash. To him, this was just another day at the office, another round of opinions swirling around his name. He shrugged it off, confident that he had done exactly what he set out to do: expose the fragility of faith when faced with reason. Yet, something about the interaction lingered in Jordan's mind, though he couldn't quite put his finger on it. At first, he dismissed it as nothing more than fatigue or stress. After all, hosting a late-night talk show wasn't easy. It demanded long hours, constant energy, and an unshakable persona. But deep down, Jordan found himself replaying moments from the interview over and over again. Keanu's calm demeanor, his refusal to rise to the bait, the way he answered each question with quiet conviction. It gnawed at Jordan in a way he hadn't expected. He told himself it didn't matter. Keanu was just another celebrity with nice words but no real substance. Still, the memory of their exchange refused to fade. One evening, after wrapping up yet another taping of his show, Jordan sat alone in his dressing room, scrolling through clips of the Keanu interview online. His phone buzzed incessantly with notifications, fans cheering him on, critics calling him arrogant, memes mocking both him and Keanu. As he scrolled, Jordan paused on a comment that caught his eye. It read, "Why does Jordan feel the need To tear down what others hold sacred. Can't he see that faith isn't about logic? The words struck a nerve, not because they were particularly insightful, but because they echoed a question Jordan had been avoiding asking himself. Why did he feel so compelled to challenge people's beliefs? He leaned back in his chair, tossing his phone onto the table with a sigh. For years, Jordan had prided himself on being rational, on relying solely on facts and evidence to navigate life. Faith, religion, spirituality, all of it seemed like nonsense to him, a crutch for those too weak to face the harsh truths of existence. And yet, as he reflected on his conversation with Keanu, he realized something unsettling. His arguments hadn't shaken the actor in the slightest. If anything, Keanu had appeared more grounded, more at peace than Jordan ever felt. That realization bothered him. How could someone who believed in something so intangible seem so sure of themselves? Was Jordan missing something? The next morning, Jordan arrived at the studio feeling unusually restless. Normally, he thrived on the chaos of preparing for a new episode, reviewing scripts, meeting with producers, tweaking jokes. But today his focus wavered. During a brainstorming session with his writing team, he found himself zoning out, staring blankly at the whiteboard covered in potential topics. When one of the writers suggested mocking a recent religious event, Jordan hesitated, surprising everyone in the room. "Maybe we don't have to go there," he said finally, shrugging off their puzzled looks. It was a small moment, but it marked the beginning of a subtle shift within him. That weekend, Jordan decided to take a rare break from work. He drove out of the city, leaving behind the noise and neon lights for the quiet countryside. The change of scenery was refreshing, though it did little to silence the thoughts swirling in his mind. As he walked along a secluded trail surrounded by towering trees and chirping birds, Jordan allowed himself to reflect. He thought about his childhood, growing up in a household where religion played no role. His parents had raised him to value science and education above all else, instilling in him a deep skepticism toward anything supernatural. For years he had embraced this worldview without question, believing it made him smarter, stronger, more enlightened than those who clung to faith. But now, for the first time, he wondered if dismissing faith entirely had left a void in his life, a gap he had tried to fill with success, recognition, and endless debates. By Monday morning, Jordan returned to the studio with a renewed sense of curiosity. He began researching topics he had previously ignored, reading articles and watching interviews about spirituality and philosophy. He even reached out to a few experts, inviting them to appear on his show, not to mock their views, but to understand them better. This new approach baffled his team, who were accustomed to Jordan's confrontational style. "What's gotten into you?" his producer asked during a meeting. Jordan shrugged, offering only a vague explanation. "I'm just trying to explore different perspectives." Meanwhile, Keanu Reeves continued his usual routine, blissfully unaware of the impact his appearance on Jordan's show had made. After the interview, he returned to his quiet life, balancing film projects with charitable work. Friends and colleagues occasionally mentioned the controversy surrounding the episode, but Keanu brushed it off with a smile. "People will always have opinions," he would say. "All I can do is stay true to myself." And true to form, he carried on as he always had, with kindness, humility, and a deep respect for others' beliefs. Unbeknownst to either man, their paths were destined to cross again. A mutual acquaintance, impressed by both Jordan's evolving perspective and Keanu's unwavering grace, extended an invitation to a charity gala hosted by Keanu's foundation. The event aimed to raise funds for underprivileged children, bringing together artists, activists, and philanthropists from around the world. Though initially hesitant, Jordan accepted the invite, intrigued by the opportunity to observe Keanu in a different setting. Perhaps, he thought, seeing the actor outside the confines of a TV studio would provide clarity or closure to the lingering questions in his mind. On the night of the gala, Jordan stepped into a grand ballroom adorned with twinkling lights and elegant decorations. Guests mingled freely, laughter and conversation filling the air. From across the room, Jordan spotted Keanu, instantly recognizable despite the crowd. Unlike their previous encounter, Keanu seemed completely at ease, chatting warmly with attendees and sharing stories that drew smiles and nods. Watching him, Jordan couldn't help but notice the genuine connection Keanu forged with everyone he met. There was no pretense, no ego, just pure authenticity. As the evening progressed, Keanu took the stage to deliver a heartfelt speech about compassion and unity. He spoke passionately about the importance of looking beyond differences and focusing on shared humanity. "We may come from different backgrounds, hold different beliefs, and walk different paths," he said, his voice steady and sincere. "But at our core, we're all searching for the same thing: love, understanding, and a sense of belonging." His words resonated deeply with the audience, earning a standing ovation that rippled through the room. Jordan stood silently among them, feeling an unexpected lump in his throat. In that moment, he realized that Keanu's faith wasn't just about religion. It was about fostering connections, spreading kindness, and making the world a better place. After the event, Jordan approached Keanu, unsure of what to say but knowing he needed to express his gratitude. To his surprise, Keanu greeted him warmly, thanking him for attending. They ended up talking for hours, delving into topics far removed from their initial clash on television. Jordan opened up about his doubts, his struggles, and the questions that had been haunting him. Keanu listened patiently, sharing insights from his own journey without judgment. By the end of their conversation, Jordan felt a profound shift within himself, a newfound appreciation for perspectives he once dismissed, and a deeper understanding of the power of empathy. Though their worlds remained vastly different, the bond formed that night stayed with both men long after the gala ended. For Jordan, it marked the start of a personal transformation, one that challenged everything he thought he knew about faith, certainty, and the human experience. And for Keanu, it reinforced his belief in the importance of compassion, proving once again that even the most unlikely encounters could lead to meaningful change. The charity gala marked a turning point for Jordan Hayes, though he didn't fully realize it at the time. As he drove home that night, his mind replayed snippets of his conversation with Keanu Reeves. The actor's calm demeanor and thoughtful words lingered in his thoughts, refusing to fade into the background like so many other interactions Jordan had experienced over the years. What struck him most wasn't just what Keanu said, but how he said it, with sincerity, patience, and an openness that Jordan rarely encountered. It was as if Keanu saw the world not as a battleground of opposing ideas, but as a tapestry woven together by shared humanity. Over the next few days, Jordan found himself reflecting on their talk more than he cared to admit. He remembered how Keanu had described faith, not as a rigid set of beliefs or rules, but as a way of connecting with something greater. "It's about trust," Keanu had said. "Trust that there's meaning in the chaos, even when we can't see it." Those words stuck with Jordan, gnawing at the edges of his skepticism. For years, he had prided himself on rejecting anything that couldn't be proven, anything that required blind acceptance. But now, he began to wonder, was faith really about blind acceptance? Or could it be something else entirely? Something deeper, more personal? Jordan's newfound curiosity started to seep into his daily life. At work, he noticed subtle changes in the way he approached topics on his show. While he still tackled controversial subjects, his tone softened. He stopped mocking people's beliefs outright and instead asked questions, genuinely trying to understand where they were coming from. His team noticed the shift too. "You've changed," one of his writers remarked during a brainstorming session. Jordan shrugged, offering only a vague explanation. "Maybe I'm just getting older." But deep down he knew it was more than that. Something inside him had shifted, a crack in the armor of certainty he had worn for so long. One afternoon, while flipping through channels during a rare break, Jordan stumbled upon a documentary about spiritual practices around the world. Intrigued, he settled in to watch. The film explored everything from meditation to prayer, highlighting stories of people who turned to these practices not because they feared the unknown, but because they sought peace, clarity, and purpose. One interview in particular stood out, a woman who spoke about losing her husband in a tragic accident and finding solace in prayer. "It's not about asking for answers," she said. "It's about feeling connected, to him, to the universe, to something bigger than myself." Her words resonated with Jordan, reminding him of Keanu's description of faith as trust in the unseen. That evening, Jordan decided to do something he hadn't done in years: visit a place of worship. He chose a small church tucked away in a quiet neighborhood, its modest exterior blending seamlessly with the surrounding homes. Stepping inside, he felt a sense of calm wash over him. The space was simple yet inviting, filled with soft light streaming through stained glass windows. A handful of people sat scattered throughout the pews, some praying silently, others lost in thought. Jordan hesitated for a moment before taking a seat near the back, unsure of what to do or say. He didn't kneel or close his eyes. Instead, he simply sat there observing, listening, letting the stillness sink in. As he sat in the quiet church, Jordan realized how foreign this experience felt to him. Growing up, religion had been absent from his life, replaced by science textbooks and rational explanations. Yet here he was, sitting among strangers who seemed to draw comfort from something he couldn't explain. He thought about all the times he had mocked faith on his show, dismissing it as irrational or outdated. Now, surrounded by the gentle hum of whispered prayers and the faint scent of incense, he wondered if he had been too quick to judge. Was it possible that faith wasn't about logic at all, but about finding meaning in moments of uncertainty? The following week, Jordan invited a panel of diverse guests to appear on his show, people from different religious and spiritual backgrounds. Instead of challenging their beliefs, he asked them to share their stories. One guest, a Buddhist monk, spoke about the power of mindfulness and living in the present moment. Another, a rabbi, discussed the importance of community and tradition. A young woman shared her journey of rediscovering her Native American roots and reconnecting with ancestral rituals. Each story was unique, yet they all carried a common thread: the search for connection, purpose, and understanding. Watching the episode later, Jordan felt a strange sense of satisfaction. For once, he hadn't tried to prove anyone wrong or expose flaws in their arguments. Instead, he had listened, truly listened, and allowed others to speak without interruption. The feedback from viewers was overwhelmingly positive, with many praising Jordan for creating a space where different perspectives could coexist peacefully. Even critics who had once accused him of being arrogant admitted that this episode felt different, more authentic. Meanwhile, Keanu continued his quiet life, unaware of the ripple effect his words had created. Friends occasionally mentioned seeing Jordan's recent episodes, noting how much they had changed since their last encounter. "He seems softer," one friend remarked. Keanu smiled knowingly but said nothing. He believed that everyone was on their own journey, shaped by experiences and encounters along the way. Whether intentional or not, his conversation with Jordan had planted a seed, one that would grow in its own time. Back in the studio, Jordan prepared for another episode, this time featuring a scientist who studied consciousness and the mysteries of the human brain. As he reviewed the guests' notes, Jordan felt a spark of excitement. This was uncharted territory for him, a chance to explore questions that went beyond black and white answers. Could science and spirituality coexist? Was it possible to find meaning in both evidence and intuition? These were questions Jordan never thought he'd ask, let alone seek answers to. Yet here he was, diving headfirst into a world he had once dismissed entirely. During the taping, Jordan leaned forward in his chair, genuinely curious about the scientists' findings. They discussed everything from quantum physics to near-death experiences, exploring the boundaries between what we know and what remains unknown. At one point, the scientist paused, looking directly at Jordan. "Sometimes," she said, "the greatest discoveries come not from proving something right or wrong, but from embracing the mystery." Her words echoed in Jordan's mind, reminding him of Keanu's earlier advice: trust in the unseen. By the end of the episode, Jordan felt a renewed sense of purpose. Hosting a talk show no longer felt like a platform for winning arguments or tearing down opposing views. Instead, it became an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to connect with others in ways he had never imagined. He realized that while he might never fully understand faith or adopt it for himself, he could respect those who did. And perhaps that respect was enough. In the weeks that followed, Jordan made a conscious effort to carry this mindset into every aspect of his life. He reached out to old friends he had fallen out of touch with, rekindling relationships he had neglected in his pursuit of success. He volunteered at local shelters, finding joy in helping others without expecting anything in return. And though he still grappled with questions about faith and meaning, he no longer felt the need to have all the answers. For the first time in years, Jordan felt at peace, not because he had resolved his doubts, but because he had learned to live alongside them. Though their paths rarely crossed again, Jordan often thought about Keanu and the unexpected impact their brief interaction had on his life. What started as a heated debate had blossomed into a journey of self-discovery, teaching Jordan that sometimes the most profound lessons come from the most unlikely places. And while he may never fully embrace faith in the way Keanu did, he had come to appreciate its role in shaping lives, including his own. As weeks turned into months, Jordan Hayes continued to navigate his evolving perspective with a mix of curiosity and caution. The changes in his life weren't immediate or dramatic. They were subtle, like ripples spreading across a calm pond. Yet those small shifts began to add up, reshaping the way he saw himself and the world around him. Hosting his talk show became less about proving a point and more about fostering understanding. Each episode felt like an opportunity to explore ideas rather than argue them, to ask questions instead of demanding answers. It was unfamiliar territory for Jordan, but it brought a sense of fulfillment he hadn't known before. One evening, as Jordan prepared for another taping, his producer handed him a note suggesting a potential guest, a philosopher who specialized in existentialism and the human search for meaning. At first, Jordan hesitated. Philosophy wasn't exactly a ratings magnet, and he worried it might bore his audience. But something about the idea intrigued him. Perhaps it was the lingering influence of Keanu's words, or the growing realization that not everything could be measured or explained. Whatever the reason, Jordan decided to take the risk. He invited the philosopher onto the show, hoping the conversation would shed light on some of the questions still swirling in his mind. The night of the interview arrived, and the studio buzzed with anticipation. The philosopher, a soft-spoken woman named Dr. Elena Carter, carried herself with quiet confidence. She wore a simple dress and glasses, her demeanor radiating warmth and wisdom. As the cameras rolled, Jordan greeted her warmly, then dove into the topic at hand. "Dr. Carter," he began, leaning forward slightly, "you've spent years studying existentialism, the idea that life has no inherent meaning unless we create it ourselves. Does that mean faith is just wishful thinking?" Dr. Carter smiled, clearly expecting the question. "Not necessarily," she replied. "Faith isn't always about believing in specific doctrines or dogmas. For many people, it's about finding purpose even when life feels chaotic or uncertain. It's about trusting that there's value in our experiences, whether we fully understand them or not." Her answer resonated deeply with Jordan, reminding him once again of Keanu's description of faith as trust in the unseen. He nodded thoughtfully, pressing further. "But how do you reconcile that with science, with facts and evidence?" This time, Dr. Carter leaned back in her chair, folding her hands together. "Science and faith don't have to be enemies," she said. "They can complement each other. Science helps us understand the how things work, how the universe operates. Faith, on the other hand, often addresses the why we're here, why we matter. Both are essential parts of the human experience." Her words struck a chord with Jordan, offering a perspective he had never considered before. Maybe faith and reason weren't opposing forces after all. Maybe they were two sides of the same coin. After the show ended, Jordan lingered in the studio, replaying moments from the interview in his mind. The audience's reaction had been overwhelmingly positive, with viewers praising the thoughtful discussion and calling it one of the most insightful episodes they'd seen. For Jordan, however, the real reward lay in the personal clarity he gained. Talking to Dr. Carter had helped him see that seeking meaning didn't require abandoning logic. It simply meant embracing complexity. Life wasn't black and white. It was shades of gray, full of contradictions and mysteries that couldn't always be solved. Inspired by the conversation, Jordan decided to take another step outside his comfort zone. He signed up for a weekend retreat focused on mindfulness and meditation, something he had scoffed at in the past. The retreat was held at a serene mountain lodge surrounded by towering trees and crisp, fresh air. Participants spent their days practicing breathing exercises, journaling, and engaging in group discussions about self-awareness and emotional growth. Jordan initially felt out of place among strangers who seemed far more comfortable with introspection than he was. But as the hours passed, he found himself relaxing, letting go of the constant need to analyze or critique. During one session, the facilitator asked participants to reflect on a moment in their lives when they felt truly connected, to another person, to nature, or even to themselves. Jordan closed his eyes, searching his memories for such a moment. Suddenly, an image came to him, sitting in that quiet church weeks earlier, listening to the faint hum of prayers around him. He hadn't understood what drove those worshippers to seek solace in silence, but in hindsight, he realized he had felt something profound in that space, a fleeting sense of peace, of being part of something larger than himself. Opening his eyes, Jordan shared the memory with the group, his voice tinged with vulnerability. To his surprise, others nodded in understanding, sharing similar stories of connection and transcendence. By the end of the retreat, Jordan felt lighter, as if a weight he hadn't noticed before had been lifted. He returned to the city with a renewed sense of purpose, determined to carry the lessons he had learned into his daily life. Back at work, he began incorporating themes of mindfulness and self-reflection into his show, inviting experts in psychology, spirituality, and wellness to share their insights. Viewers responded enthusiastically, appreciating the shift toward topics that encouraged personal growth and empathy. Even longtime critics of Jordan admitted that his new approach felt refreshing, almost inspiring. Meanwhile, Keanu Reeves remained largely unaware of the impact he had made on Jordan's journey. His life continued as usual, balancing film projects with charitable endeavors. Friends occasionally mentioned hearing about Jordan's recent episodes, noting how much they differed from his earlier confrontational style. "He's changed," one friend remarked during a casual conversation. Keanu smiled knowingly but said nothing. He believed that everyone moved through life at their own pace, shaped by their unique experiences. If his words had sparked something, in Jordan that was enough for him. Unbeknownst to both men, fate had one more twist in store. A mutual acquaintance, impressed by Jordan's transformation and Keanu's unwavering kindness, arranged for them to meet again, this time under different circumstances. The occasion was a benefit concert supporting mental health awareness, an issue close to both their hearts. When Jordan spotted Keanu across the crowded venue, he hesitated for a moment before approaching him. "Keanu," he said, extending a hand. "It's good to see you." Keanu turned, recognition lighting up his face. "Jordan," he replied warmly, shaking his hand. "I heard you've been doing some amazing work lately." The compliment caught Jordan off guard, and for a moment he struggled to find the right words. "I owe a lot of that to you," he admitted finally, his voice tinged with gratitude. Our conversation after the gala, it made me think differently about things, about faith, about connection. Keanu listened quietly, nodding as Jordan spoke. When Jordan finished, Keanu placed a hand on his shoulder. "We're all learning," he said simply. "Every experience teaches us something, if we're open to it." His words reinforced what Jordan had come to believe, that growth wasn't about having all the answers, but about staying curious, staying open to change. The rest of the evening passed in easy conversation, the two men discovering common ground beyond their initial clash of ideologies. They talked about their passions, their struggles, and the importance of using their platforms to make a difference. By the end of the night, Jordan felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for Keanu's influence, but for the journey he had embarked upon. He realized that while he might never fully embrace faith in the traditional sense, he had come to appreciate its role in shaping lives, including his own. In the weeks that followed, Jordan continued to evolve, both personally and professionally. His show became a beacon of thoughtful dialogue, encouraging viewers to explore complex topics with openness and respect. And though he and Keanu rarely crossed paths again, the bond they formed served as a reminder that sometimes the most unexpected encounters could lead to profound transformation. For Jordan, the road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in years he welcomed the unknown, trusting that meaning would reveal itself in its own time. Jordan Hayes' transformation wasn't something that happened overnight, but over time it became impossible to ignore. The changes in his life were like the first rays of sunlight breaking through a dark sky, slow at first, but gradually illuminating everything around him. His talk show, once known for its sharp edges and confrontational tone, had softened into a platform for meaningful conversations. Viewers noticed the shift, commenting on how Jordan seemed more genuine, more human. He no longer approached every topic as if he needed to win an argument. Instead, he listened, asked questions, and allowed guests to share their stories without judgment. It was a new chapter for him, one he hadn't anticipated, but now embraced fully. One evening, as Jordan sat in his office reviewing notes for an upcoming episode, his assistant walked in with a message. "There's someone here who wants to meet you," she said hesitantly. "He says he's been watching your show and wanted to thank you personally." Intrigued, Jordan nodded, curious about who this visitor might be. Moments later, a middle-aged man entered the room, his face lined with years of hardship but lit by a warm smile. "Mr. Hayes," the man began, extending his hand, "I just wanted to say thank you. Your recent episodes, they've helped me in ways I can't explain." The man went on to share his story, a tale of loss, struggle, and eventual healing. He had lost his wife to illness and found himself drowning in grief, unable to see a way forward. Then one night, while aimlessly flipping through channels, he stumbled upon Jordan's show. The episode featured a psychologist discussing resilience and finding strength in vulnerability. Something about the conversation resonated deeply with the man, giving him hope when he needed it most. As he spoke, Jordan listened intently, moved by the sincerity in the man's voice. When the visitor finally left, Jordan sat quietly for a long time, reflecting on the impact his work was having, not just on debates or opinions, but on real people living real lives. This encounter stayed with Jordan, reinforcing his belief that everyone carried burdens invisible to others. It reminded him of the importance of empathy, of using his platform not just to entertain but to uplift. Inspired by the man's gratitude, Jordan decided to dedicate an entire week of episodes to mental health awareness. He invited therapists, survivors of trauma, and advocates for emotional well-being to share their experiences. Each guest brought a unique perspective, yet all emphasized the same core message. Healing begins when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, to seek help, and to connect with others. The response to these episodes was overwhelming. Viewers flooded social media with messages of support, sharing their own struggles and expressing relief at seeing such topics addressed openly. Many credited Jordan with helping them feel less alone. For the first time in his career, Jordan felt like he was making a tangible difference, not by tearing down beliefs or winning arguments, but by creating a space where people could find solace and understanding. It was humbling, and it filled him with a sense of purpose he had never experienced before. Meanwhile, Keanu Reeves continued his quiet efforts to make the world a better place. Though their paths rarely crossed, Keanu occasionally caught glimpses of Jordan's evolving approach to hosting. Friends would mention episodes they found inspiring, or clips they saw online that showcased Jordan's newfound empathy. While Keanu didn't reach out directly, he felt a quiet satisfaction knowing that their brief interaction had planted a seed of change. Life, he believed, was full of these small moments. Interactions that seemed insignificant at the time, but carried profound ripple effects. Back in the studio, Jordan prepared for another milestone episode, this time featuring a panel discussion on spirituality and science. He had invited experts from both fields to explore whether the two could coexist harmoniously. The idea stemmed from his ongoing curiosity about faith and reason, a question that still lingered in his mind despite all the progress he'd made. As the cameras rolled, Jordan introduced the panelists, setting the stage for what promised to be a thought-provoking conversation. For centuries, he began, people have debated whether faith and science are fundamentally opposed to each other. Tonight, we're going to ask, can they complement one another? The discussion unfolded naturally, with each panelist offering insights drawn from their respective disciplines. A physicist explained how quantum mechanics challenged traditional notions of reality, leaving room for wonder and mystery. A theologian spoke about the spiritual dimensions of awe, the feeling of being part of something greater than oneself. A neuroscientist discussed the brain's capacity for belief, suggesting that faith might be wired into human nature. As the conversation deepened, Jordan found himself marveling at the complexity of it all. Here were people from vastly different backgrounds united by a shared desire to understand the world and their place within it. By the end of the episode, Jordan felt a renewed appreciation for the beauty of uncertainty. He realized that not having all the answers wasn't a weakness. It was an invitation to keep exploring, to remain open to new ideas. This realization extended beyond the confines of his show, influencing how he approached everyday interactions. Whether chatting with colleagues, engaging with fans on social media, or simply walking through the city streets, Jordan began to notice the interconnectedness of everything around him. Every person, every moment carried significance, even if it wasn't immediately apparent. As spring turned to summer, Jordan took another bold step in his journey. He announced a special project, a documentary series exploring diverse perspectives on faith, meaning, and the human experience. The idea came to him during a late-night brainstorming session, sparked by memories of his conversations with Keanu and Dr. Carter. He envisioned traveling across the country, meeting individuals from all walks of life who embodied resilience, compassion, and hope. From monks living in remote monasteries to activists fighting for justice in urban neighborhoods, each story would highlight humanity's endless capacity for connection and growth. Filming the series proved to be both challenging and rewarding. Jordan immersed himself in unfamiliar worlds, learning from people whose lives were vastly different from his own. In a small town in the Midwest, he met a farmer who started a community garden after losing his crops to drought. The man spoke passionately about finding purpose in service, saying, "When life knocks you down, you get back up, not for yourself, but for the people counting on you." In a bustling city, Jordan interviewed a young artist who used her talents to raise awareness about homelessness. She described creativity as a form of prayer, a way of channeling pain into beauty. Each encounter left Jordan with a deeper understanding of the myriad ways people sought meaning in their lives. The documentary, premiered to critical acclaim, praised for its authenticity and heart. Critics hailed it as a departure from Jordan's earlier work, noting the depth and sensitivity he brought to the project. For viewers, the series served as a reminder of our shared humanity, a call to look beyond differences and focus on what unites us. Jordan received countless messages from fans expressing gratitude, many admitting that the series inspired them to reflect on their own journeys. One letter in particular stood out. Written by a teenager struggling with self-doubt, it read, "Your show taught me that it's okay to not have all the answers. That gives me hope." Despite the success of the series, Jordan remained humble, aware that his journey was far from over. He knew there would always be questions he couldn't answer, mysteries he couldn't unravel. But rather than fearing the unknown, he embraced it, trusting that growth came from leaning into discomfort. This mindset guided him as he returned to hosting his talk show, which had become a beloved staple for audiences seeking thoughtful dialogue. Each episode felt like a continuation of the exploration he had started months ago, an ongoing quest for understanding. Unbeknownst to Jordan, Keanu Reeves followed the documentary series closely, impressed by the depth and sincerity of its storytelling. Friends mentioned running into Jordan at events or hearing about his latest projects, noting how much he had grown since their initial meeting. Keanu smiled, feeling a quiet pride in knowing he had played a small part in Jordan's transformation. Life, he believed, was a tapestry woven from countless threads, each interaction, however brief, contributing to the bigger picture. And though their paths might never cross again, the bond they formed through honest conversation endured, serving as a testament to the power of empathy and openness. For Jordan, the road ahead remained uncertain, but he no longer feared the twists and turns. Instead, he welcomed them, trusting that every experience held the potential for growth. Faith, he realized, wasn't about believing in specific doctrines or dogmas. It was about embracing the mystery, staying curious, and remaining open to change. And though he might never adopt faith in the traditional sense, he had come to appreciate its role in shaping lives, including his own. As the seasons changed and autumn painted the city in shades of gold and crimson, Jordan Hayes found himself reflecting on how far he had come. The man who once prided himself on tearing down beliefs now stood as someone willing to build bridges between ideas, between people, and within himself. His talk show remained a beacon of thoughtful dialogue, drawing audiences eager for conversations that challenged yet comforted. Each episode felt like another step forward, not just for Jordan but for everyone tuning in. Yet despite the outward success, Jordan knew the journey wasn't about fame or recognition. It was about growth, connection, and understanding. 1. Crisp morning, Jordan received an unexpected email from Keanu Reeves's team. It was brief but intriguing. "Keanu would like to catch up. Are you free this weekend?" Jordan stared at the screen for a moment, surprised by the invitation. Since their last encounter at the benefit concert, they hadn't spoken directly, though Jordan often thought about the actor's quiet wisdom and unwavering kindness. Without hesitation, he replied, confirming his availability. As the day approached, Jordan couldn't help but wonder what Keanu wanted to discuss. Had he seen the documentary series? Did he have thoughts on how Jordan's perspective had evolved? Whatever the reason, Jordan looked forward to reconnecting. The meeting took place at a small cafe tucked away in a quiet corner of the city. Keanu arrived first, seated near the window with a cup of coffee in hand. When Jordan walked in, Keanu greeted him warmly, standing up to shake his hand. "It's good to see you," Keanu said, his voice calm and genuine. They sat down, exchanging pleasantries before diving into deeper conversation. Keanu began by complimenting Jordan on his recent work, particularly the documentary series. "I watched it," he admitted with a smile. "You did something important. You gave people a voice." Jordan felt a swell of gratitude at the praise, though he quickly deflected it. "I owe a lot of that to you," he said honestly. "That night at the gala, your words stuck with me. They made me think differently about faith, about connection." Keanu nodded, his expression thoughtful. "We're all teachers and students," he replied. "Sometimes we say things without realizing their impact, but I'm glad my words resonated with you." Their conversation flowed effortlessly, touching on everything from personal growth to the challenges of staying grounded in a chaotic world. Keanu shared stories from his own life, the losses he had endured, the moments of doubt, and the ways faith had helped him find peace amid uncertainty. Jordan listened intently, struck by the actor's vulnerability. For someone so admired, Keanu carried his experiences with remarkable humility. In turn, Jordan opened up about his own struggles, the doubts that lingered, the questions he still wrestled with, and the sense of fulfillment he found in fostering understanding. At one point, Keanu leaned forward, his gaze steady. "Faith isn't about having all the answers," he said. "It's about trusting the process even when it feels messy. You've already embraced that in your own way, by staying curious, by being open to change." Jordan nodded, feeling a deep sense of validation. He realized that while he might never adopt faith in the traditional sense, he had come to embody its essence: trust in the unseen, patience with the unknown, and a commitment to seeking meaning. The afternoon wore on. Their conversation turned to the future. Both men expressed a desire to continue using their platforms for good, whether through storytelling, advocacy, or simply leading by example. Keanu spoke passionately about the importance of compassion, urging Jordan to keep shining a light on humanity's shared values. People need reminders, he said. Reminders that we're all connected, that kindness matters, that there's always hope, even in the darkest times. Jordan agreed wholeheartedly, vowing to carry those principles forward in everything he did. When they finally parted ways, Jordan felt a profound sense of gratitude, not just for Keanu's influence, but for the entire journey he had embarked upon. What started as a heated debate had blossomed into a friendship built on mutual respect and understanding. More than that, it had sparked a transformation within Jordan, reshaping the way he saw himself and the world around him. He realized that growth wasn't linear, it was messy, unpredictable, and deeply personal. And yet, it was beautiful in its imperfection. Back at work, Jordan channeled this newfound clarity into his projects. His talk show continued to thrive, tackling complex topics with empathy and insight. Viewers responded enthusiastically, praising Jordan for creating a space where diverse perspectives could coexist peacefully. Meanwhile, plans for a second documentary series began to take shape, this time focusing on acts of kindness and resilience across communities. Jordan envisioned it as a celebration of humanity's capacity for goodness, a reminder that even in challenging times, hope persisted. Word of Jordan's evolution spread beyond his audience, reaching critics and colleagues alike. Some marveled at how much he had changed, while others remarked on the authenticity he brought to his work. One journalist wrote, "Jordan Hayes is no longer just a talk show host, he's a bridge builder connecting hearts and minds in a divided world." The praise humbled Jordan, reinforcing his belief that every experience carried meaning, every interaction held potential. In the months that followed, Jordan made a conscious effort to live more intentionally. He spent less time chasing perfection and more time embracing imperfection. He reached out to old friends, rekindling relationships he had neglected in his pursuit of success. He volunteered regularly, finding joy in helping others without expecting anything in return. And though questions about faith and meaning still lingered in his mind, he no longer felt the need to resolve them immediately. Instead, he trusted that answers would reveal themselves in time, as long as he remained open to learning. Meanwhile, Keanu continued his quiet efforts to make the world a better place. Though their paths rarely crossed again, the bond they formed endured, serving as a testament to the power of honest conversation. Friends occasionally mentioned hearing about Jordan's latest projects, noting how much he had grown since their initial meeting. Keanu smiled knowingly, proud of the role he had played, however small, in Jordan's transformation. Life, he believed, was full of these moments, fleeting encounters that left lasting impressions. For Jordan, the road ahead remained uncertain, but he welcomed the unknown with open arms. He realized that faith, whether in God, in humanity, or in the universe, wasn't about certainty. It was about trust. Trust that even in chaos, there was order. Trust that even in darkness, there was light. Trust that even in uncertainty, there was purpose. This realization didn't erase his doubts or answer all his questions, but it gave him peace, a peace he hadn't known before. Years later, as Jordan reflected on his journey, he often thought about that fateful interview, the one that started it all. What began as a clash of ideologies had transformed into a lesson in empathy, connection, and growth. It taught him that sometimes the most unexpected moments could lead to the most profound changes, and though he might never fully understand faith in the way Keanu did, he had come to appreciate its role in shaping lives, including his own. In the end, Jordan's story was one of transformation, not just of mind, but of heart. It was a reminder that growth wasn't about abandoning who you were, but about becoming who you were meant to be. And for Jordan Hayes, that journey was far from over. With each new day came fresh opportunities to learn, to connect, and to trust in the beauty of the unknown.